All right, so today we are diving deep into SUI, this blockchain that like everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, you've been hearing about SUI timber and the price surges, and even comparisons to Solana, like back in the early days. So you
Mhm.
sent over some great articles and analysis wanting to know if SUI has like what it takes to turn a decent investment into, well, serious wealth.
Right.
And let me tell you, the numbers are definitely like eye-catching. We're talking about a blockchain that's barely even a year old,
Yeah.
but already seeing explosive growth. But
Yeah.
to really understand what's going on beneath the hype, we've got our expert here that can help us connect the dots, see the bigger picture, and figure out if this rocket ship has enough fuel for the long haul.
Absolutely.
So first off, for anyone who's new to this whole thing,
hmm
what exactly is SUI? I know it's a blockchain, but what makes it special?
Yeah, SUI is what we call a layer one blockchain, which basically means it's the foundation for a whole ecosystem of
Yeah.
decentralized applications, or dApps. Think of it like the operating system of a phone, providing that basic infrastructure for everything to run on top of it.
Okay, got it. So like Ethereum or Solana, but newer.
Right. And one of the things that sets SUI apart is its age. It launched on May 3rd, 2023, so it's incredibly young in the crypto world. But despite that, it's already making waves, especially with this September boom and activity.
Yeah, the source material mentioned that things were pretty quiet at first, then bam, it just exploded. What triggered that?
Well, a few things happened in close succession. First, you have the record-breaking pre-orders. For SUI Play, a handheld gaming device built on the SUI blockchain. This got a lot of attention, not just from crypto folks, but from gamers as well.
Oh, wait, cool.
Then they launched a major upgrade to their consensus mechanism called Misty CTI, which made SUI the fastest blockchain around. We're talking near instantaneous transactions, which is a huge deal for user experience.
Wait, hold on. How do they make transactions that fast? I thought blockchains were supposed to be slow and clunky.
That's a common misconception. See, most blockchains rely on a consensus mechanism called proof of work or proof of stake, which can be pretty energy intensive and time consuming. But SUI uses a different approach called directed acyclic graphs, or DAGs. Without getting too technical, it basically allows them to process transactions in parallel rather than one after another, which leads to those super fast speeds.
That's fascinating. It sounds like they're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with blockchain technology.
They are. And they've got even more in the pipeline. They're launching a decentralized storage platform called Walrus in early 2025, which has its own token, WalDay. Think of it like a decentralized version of Dropbox or Google Drive, but built on SUI.
So instead of trusting a big corporation with your data, you can store it securely on a decentralized network.
Exactly. And there's one more thing I have to mention. Native USDC integration is also coming soon.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around before,
Yeah.
but I'm not entirely sure what it means. What's so special about native USDC?
So USDC is a stablecoin pegged to the US dollar. It's widely used in the crypto world. But on most blockchains, it exists as a wrapped token. This means it has to be bridged over from another blockchain, which can be slow and introduce security risks.
Ah, so more steps, more potential for things to go wrong.
Precisely. But with native USDC on SUI, you can use it directly on the blockchain without any wrapping or bridging. This makes it much easier and safer to use USDC for things like decentralized finance or DeFi.
No, DeFi is a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's like banking, but without the banks, right?
You got it. And with native USDC, SUI is positioning itself to be a major player in that space.
Okay, so we've got this cutting-edge technology, a team of experienced developers,
Yeah.
and a ton of exciting developments on the horizon. All this talk about September and fast transactions. It reminds me that SUI is also built on something called the Move programming language, right?
You're right. That's a crucial piece of the puzzle. The Move language was actually developed for that DM project Facebook was working on, the one that never quite took off.
So they took what they learned from DM and used it to build SUI.
Exactly. And Move brings some unique advantages to the table. It's object-centric, which makes it much easier to represent and manage digital assets. On the blockchain, think of it like this. On most blockchains, assets are kind of like intangible tokens. But on SUI, thanks to Move, they're treated more like physical objects, with clearly defined properties and ownership rights.
That's interesting. So like, instead of just having a token that represents a piece of art, you could have a digital object on SUI that actually embodies that artwork, with all its details and history.
That's a great way to put it. This approach makes SUI incredibly well suited for applications like NFTs, gaming, and even complex financial instruments.
Okay, so we're starting to see how all these pieces fit together. This move language makes SUI ideal for handling digital assets. The MISTI CTI upgrade makes transactions super fast, and features like native USDC and the Walrus storage platform open up a ton of possibilities for developers and users. I'm starting to understand why there's so much excitement around SUI.
It's all very cleverly designed, and the potential is definitely there.
But let's be real. A lot of people are interested in SUI because they've heard about the potential for big profits. They want to know if this is the next crypto moonshot. That could turn them into a millionaire.
That's a fair point. And to understand that, we need to take a closer look at the SUI token itself.
Perfect. Let's dive into those tokenomics.
All right, so let's talk tokens. The SUI token, just like the blockchain itself, has had a pretty wild ride so far.
Yeah, it definitely hasn't been a boring year for SUI investors.
Not at all. When it launched back in May of 2023, the SUI token started at $1.33. Things looked promising, but then it took a dip, hitting a low of 36 cents in October of that year.
Oof, that's a significant drop. I can imagine early investors were feeling a bit nervous at that point.
I'm sure some were. But then, things started to turn around. In February and March of this year, SUI hit new all-time highs of 91 cents and $1.27, respectively. And as of our recording date, October 17th, 2024, it reached a whopping $2.35, with a market cap of $5.5 billion. That's a gain of over 300% in just a year.
Those are some serious numbers. It sounds like SUI's been defying expectations left and right.
It has. But remember, crypto is inherently volatile. While these gains are impressive, we can't guarantee this trend will continue forever. Black swan events, those unpredictable occurrences that can shake up the entire market, are always a possibility.
You're right. It's important to keep that in mind. So beyond the price fluctuations, what else is important to understand about the SUI token?
One crucial factor is the circulating supply. Right now, only about 27.6% of the total SUI tokens are actually in circulation.
So the majority of SUI tokens are still locked away somewhere. Why is that?
It's common practice in crypto projects to have a vesting schedule for token distribution. Basically, it means that a certain percentage of tokens are gradually released over time. SUI has a pretty long vesting schedule, extending all the way to April 2030.
So that means there's a steady stream of new SUI tokens entering the market for the next few years.
Exactly. And this is something investors need to consider. As more tokens become available, it can potentially impact the price.
Okay, that makes sense. But didn't one of the sources mention a recent token unlock that didn't seem to have a negative impact?
Yes. Earlier this month, $110 million worth of SUI tokens were unlocked, and many people expected the price to drop. But instead, it continued to climb, even hitting those new all-time highs we discussed.
Wow, that's a pretty strong sign of confidence from the market.
It is. It suggests that investors are still bullish on SUI, even with the increased circulating supply. And remember, the native USDC integration is just around the corner, which could attract even more investors and further boost SUI's DeFi ecosystem.
All right, so we've got this high-performing token with a limited supply, a long vesting schedule, and upcoming catalysts that could drive further growth. But let's get back to that million-dollar question. Can investing in SUI realistically make someone a millionaire?
It's the question everyone wants answered. And as you might imagine, there's no easy answer, but one of the sources you provided does a good job of breaking down some potential scenarios based on different price targets for SUI.
Yeah, it lays out a few different paths to becoming a SUI millionaire with varying levels of investment and risk involved.
Right. One scenario assumes that SUI reaches $20 per token at the peak of the next bull market. To become a millionaire at that price, you'd need to hold 50,000 SUI tokens.
Which, at today's price of around $2, would require an investment of $100,000.
Exactly. Now, for some people, that might be a manageable investment, but for others, it's simply not feasible. So the source also explores a more conservative scenario, where SUI reaches $10 per token, a 5 times increase from its current price.
In that case, you'd need 100,000 SUI tokens to become a millionaire, which would mean investing $200,000 today.
Right. Double the investment, but potentially a more attainable target for some. And then, of course, there's the most optimistic scenario where SUI explodes in value and reaches $40 per token.
That's a 20x increase. In that case, you'd only need 25,000 SUI tokens to hit that $1 million mark, a $50,000 investment at today's price.
A lot less capital up front, but a much bolder prediction.
So let's talk realism. Out of these scenarios, which one seems the most likely? Can SUI really pull off a 10 times, let alone a 20 times increase?
Well, remember all those positive indicators we talked about. The impressive TVL growth, the increasing number of daily active users, the ongoing development of the SUI ecosystem,
Hmm.
not to mention the upcoming native USDC integration.
It does seem like SUI has a lot of momentum behind it.
It does. And given all that, a 10 times increase in price, while ambitious, isn't entirely out of the realm of possibility.
So it's not just hype. There's real substance behind this potential growth.
Absolutely. Now, a 5 times increase might be a more grounded possibility. Still impressive, but perhaps less reliant on pure speculation.
Right, a more measured approach.
Yeah.
And what about that 20x scenario? Is that just wishful thinking?
It's definitely a long shot, but remember, we've seen these kinds of gains in the crypto market before. Think back to Solana's performance in the last bull run. It's not impossible, but it's important to emphasize that past performance is not a guarantee of future results.
Right, and that's a crucial point to remember. We're not offering financial advice here, and investing in crypto always carries risks. But it's undeniably an exciting space to watch.
It is. So what stands out to you from all this? Which scenario resonates most with your own investment goals and risk tolerance?
Honestly, it's a lot to take in. SUI seems to have all the right ingredients for success. But like you said, the crypto world is full of surprises, and things can change really quickly.
You got that right. There's a lot to be excited about with SUI, but approaching it with a healthy dose of caution is key. Remember, we're still in the early stages,
Yeah.
and the future is never certain.
So, even if SUI hits all its milestones and keeps growing at this rate, there are still potential roadblocks. What are some things that could derail its progress?
Well, one major factor is competition. The blockchain space is incredibly competitive. With new projects popping up all the time, SUI might face challenges from other Layer 1 blockchains with similar features or even superior technology. It's not like they have a monopoly on innovation.
Right, that's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the hype around one specific project and forget that there's a whole ecosystem out there constantly evolving and pushing the boundaries.
Exactly. And another thing to keep in mind is regulation. Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to regulate cryptocurrencies, and any new rules or restrictions could have a significant impact on SUI's growth.
Yeah, regulation is the big unknown hanging over the entire crypto industry. It's hard to predict what's going to happen, but it's definitely something to watch closely.
Absolutely. And here's something else to consider. You mentioned that some people are calling SUI the next Solana. Let's say that comes true. And SUI achieves those massive gains we talked about. Are there any potential downsides to that kind of rapid growth?
That's an interesting question. We've been focusing on the positive aspects, but what are some of the potential pitfalls of becoming the next big thing in crypto?
Well, rapid growth can sometimes lead to instability. If the price of SUI skyrockets too quickly, it could create a bubble that eventually bursts, leaving investors with significant losses.
Right. We've seen that happen before with other cryptocurrencies. It's like a roller coaster ride, exciting on the way up, but potentially devastating on the way down.
Exactly. And another potential issue is scalability. Can SUI's technology actually handle a massive influx of users and transactions without experiencing performance issues? That's something they'll need to prove over time.
So even if the technology is sound, there's always the risk that it might not be able to scale effectively to meet the demands of a rapidly growing user base.
Precisely. And finally, there's the question of decentralization. One of the core principles of blockchain technology is decentralization, the idea that no single entity has control over the network. But as projects grow and become more successful, there's always the risk that they might become more centralized, with a small group of individuals or organizations wielding a disproportionate amount of influence.
That would undermine the whole ethos of blockchain, wouldn't it?
It would. So it's something to keep an eye on with SUI. As with any successful crypto project, how do they maintain that balance between growth and decentralization? It's a delicate dance.
So I think the takeaway here is that while SUI is incredibly exciting and has a lot of potential, it's important to approach it with a realistic perspective. Don't just chase the hype, but really dig into the fundamentals. Understand the risks, and most importantly, invest only what you can afford to lose.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Investing in crypto, especially in a project as young as SUI, is like navigating uncharted territory. There are bound to be unexpected twists and turns along the way.
Well, thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us and sharing your insights on SUI. I think our listener now has a much clearer understanding of what SUI is all about, both the potential and the challenges.
It was my pleasure. I always enjoy exploring these cutting-edge technologies and trying to make sense of this ever-evolving landscape.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into SUI. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Remember, the world of crypto is full of possibilities, but also risks. So stay informed, do your own research, and invest responsibly. And if you have any thoughts or questions about SUI or anything else crypto-related, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us through our website or social media channels. Thanks for listening.